A review copy was provided by PlayStation. I've been a fan of Ratchet & Clank for a long time, ever since the first game was released way back in 2002. The mix of platforming, humor, and crazy weapons immediately enamored me, and then the series just kept getting better. With each new game, smart revisions were made and more creativity was on display, while the storytelling found an emotional heart with the titular characters. And yet, for all its sales success, conversation around the series has never taken off. The fans are there, but it feels like it isn't talked about like other critically lauded series. However, I think that's about to change with the duo's PlayStation 5 debut, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. This is a new pinnacle for the franchise. The story picks up several years after the end of the previous game, Into the Nexus, with the city of Megapolis throwing the pair a parade in honor of all the times they've saved the galaxy. But during the festivities, longtime villain Dr. Nefarious appears, having stolen a newly fixed dimension. In the chaos of the fight, the device is destroyed, leading to the fraying of dimensions, as well as Ratchet and Clank finding themselves separated in a new galaxy ruled by an Emperor Nefarious. It's then that a new female Lombax, Rivet, comes across Clank and escapes with him in tow. Now it's up to Ratchet and Rivet to discover each other and unite against the threat of both Doctor and Emperor Nefarious. What became immediately clear to me this time around was the shift in tone. The game still displays the series' trademark humor, but it's been dialed back in favor of more concrete stakes and an introspective look at each character. It's something that's been building ever since Tools of Destruction, but this feels like a culmination in the same way as A Crack in Time. But if there is a theme to Rift Apart, it's lifting yourself up from your own self-doubt, something common in all the heroes this time around. Clank is struggling with the guilt of repairing the Dimensionator and indirectly causing all of their problems. Ratchet wonders if he's not good enough to find the other lost Lombaxes, and Rivet has trouble working with others, preferring not to get hurt. It's all fantastically handled, especially Rivet and another new character that I won't mention. They immediately feel right at home in this universe, and it's near impossible not to fall in love with them. There's another addition to the storytelling this time around though. The characters are often talking through gameplay sequences, either commenting on what's happening or reflecting on their own feelings. The dialogue is almost never repeated either, leading to a seamless flow and connection between everyone. You get how Ratchet and Rivet are nervously curious about one another, how Clank and Rivet are building a relationship, and how Ratchet and Clank are simply old friends at this point. It's reminiscent of the Uncharted series and how it's handled, especially with some of the action-packed set pieces. It was hard not to find myself utterly sucked into what was happening. It also doesn't hurt that the gameplay is sublime, building upon the foundation the series has become known for. Each game in the franchise combined platforming and weapon-based combat to varying degrees, often leaning heavier on the action. But Rift Apart finds a great balance between the two, accentuating the strengths of each. The platforming never gets too tricky, but figuring out how to traverse the worlds and reach hidden areas is extremely fulfilling. More importantly, the new movement options help spice up just how Ratchet and Rivet explore each world. The most obvious addition is the Rift Tether, which allows you to instantly transport to a distant location through a yellow rift. It's always impressive how quickly everything shifts and is used smartly in both platforming and combat. During exploration, the rifts could hide paths to secrets, or may just be a way to cross a wide gap by being in the right position. In combat, there are almost always arenas with the rifts spread throughout, allowing players to get behind the hordes of enemies for potentially better positioning. It's a constant tool that felt like a natural extension of Ratchet's moveset. The Phantom Dash has similar utility, as it not only gives Ratchet and Rivet a chance to reach far-off platforms, but provides a brief moment of invulnerability, allowing them to dodge incoming shots or even pass through certain walls. That said, it was something I didn't often think about during combat, likely because the strafing dodge jump is ingrained into me by this point as a series fan. As time went on though, I did find myself using it more because the game knows how to pile on the odds. There's also a new wall dash that can be used at specific points, making certain moments just a little more visually interesting. But that's the key idea. These new moves feel like the first major upgrade to Ratchet's movement repertoire in quite some time, and all of them are welcome. There are even pocket dimensions to find that offer short platforming challenges. None of them are that difficult, but I appreciated the highlight on platforming, and the reward of armor pieces was well worth it. The armor comes in sets of 3 that provides bonuses even when not worn. Simply collecting them is enough, which I appreciated as none of the armors really fit my taste stylistically. But a boost in experience gained, bolts earned, and damage prevented from various enemy types made me want to find them all. The same goes for the returning gold bolts, which have the best rewards to date for finding them all. Where previously they mainly unlock skins or other small bonuses, this time each one unlocks something unique, whether it be a different color for Ratchet's wrench or Rivet's hammer, more character profiles, or music for a jukebox. Each one felt like more of a reward when compared to the previous games. And there might be a reason for that, as skill points are not featured in Rift Apart at all. In the past, these referred to hidden challenges that could then be spent for special unlocks and cheats. With the presence of trophies and gold bolts unlocking those types of rewards, it seems like the concept has been scrapped for good, as they also didn't appear in the 2016 remake. I can't say it's a huge loss, as I prefer the extra utility to gold bolts, but still felt it was worth noting. That's all just platforming and exploration though. It's the action and creative arsenal that have always set Ratchet & Clank apart. While many of the weapons are based on familiar concepts like pistols, grenades, shotguns, and rocket launchers, the more unique ideas are always the ones I most look forward to. The lineup in Rift Apart isn't as wacky as some previous weapons, but the utility of the entire set is top notch. The Topiary Sprinkler freezes enemies in place while covering them in greenery. The Ricochet sends out a pinball that bounces between enemies while dealing extra damage with proper timing. The Negatron Collider sends out a burst of energy that can pierce multiple enemies, and the Lightning Rod is amazing at stopping and culling huge groups of enemies. The imagination isn't as wild, but there are no duds in this group. The way the guns are handled is also no different from recent entries in the series. Each weapon can be leveled up as they're used until reaching level 5, at which point they evolve into an even more potent version. It's also possible to upgrade the weapons through Raritanium, allowing you to increase their power and ammo count or enhance particular aspects unique to each weapon. Thankfully, everything is shared between Ratchet and Rivet, making them functionally the same. It's a formula that is as satisfying and addicting as ever, but where the weapons really take on a life of their own is through the DualSense controller. It is unbelievably effective in not only getting me sucked into the gameplay, but making me think about each action I took in an intuitive way. Almost every weapon uses the adaptive triggers in some manner. Tossing weapons can be held halfway to see the throwing arc, and even get an indicator of when it'll hit an enemy. Rapid-fire weapons rattle the controller to show the power at play. But the best are those with alternate uses. For example, the new shotgun was featured heavily in Insomniac's previews for the feature. Holding the trigger down halfway fires one barrel, while pressing it down the entire way shoots both. But there's a far clearer example thanks to the new shield weapon, where the shield comes out when half pushed and is then shot out toward enemies when held down completely. It's distinct and yet easily flows together, making the controls feel revolutionary in a way that I have not experienced up until this point. Suddenly, the battles couldn't be easily boiled down to just holding down the trigger and dodging. It's even more stark as I played Tools of Destruction soon after this and immediately felt the absence of the feature. It is utterly mesmerizing in action. And that action is as solid as ever. There's tons of enemy variety, and later fights are absolutely chaotic in the best way. Seeing everything come together, the movement, the weapons, the DualSense, felt euphoric in a way that reminded me of my first time playing the original Ratchet & Clank back on PlayStation 2. Not to mention my favorite moments of a crack in time. And this isn't even everything in Rift Apart. Clank sections are back, where this time he attempts to fix anomalies. Here, he must guide an endless parade of dimensional possibilities of himself to a certain point through the use of special orbs that change their speed and weight, guiding them past environmental hazards. These sections aren't too difficult on the whole, though a few of them did take me some time to figure out, but they serve as a nice break from the action either way. The same can be said of the new hacking minigame, where you take control of an adorable AI program called Glitch as it battles through hordes of viruses in order to clear them out. Glitch's ability to walk on any surface helps make it stand out from the usual action beats, as the perspective is flipped to and fro. It all comes together beautifully, and much of that is due to the variety of planets in Rift Apart. There aren't as many as previous games, but more is done on each one. Even better is that each planet feels different from the others. Some are wide open with tons to explore. Some actually swap between two different dimensional versions. Many of them are filled with way more NPCs than the series has ever seen before, making everything feel like a living, breathing world. But it's not quite perfect, as I did come across a couple issues. Strangely, they all involve the weapon shop. On 2 occasions the game completely froze, forcing me to restart. I didn't lose any progress, and it was fast to get back into the action, but it did happen. The weapon shop also became unavailable for 2 planets in a row due to the shopkeeper believing there were enemies around despite that not being the case. It was more of an annoyance than anything, but the game does have a day 1 patch that will likely clear up these issues. It should be obvious by this point thanks to the footage alone, but Rift Apart is an unbelievably gorgeous game. Everything is vibrant and colorful when it needs to be, but also sets the proper mood for each planet. A lot of that is achieved through the lighting, which is simply unreal at times, even more so when there are tons of characters on screen at the same time. There are moments when there are NPCs running all around while enemies attack and things explode all over. And keep in mind, it's possible to be teleporting around with the Rift Tether while all this is happening as well. And yet, everything loads instantaneously. Not once did I encounter slowdown of any kind. The game is simply a marvel of tech, and that applies to the smaller moments as well. The fur texture on Ratchet and Rivet is fantastic, along with all the subtleties to their facial expressions and body language. Its stylized animation feels like a new benchmark in gaming. The audio design is excellent as well, with plenty of sounds happening all around in battle. It's mixed to perfection with nothing seeming drowned out despite the obvious chaos at times. And that's not even including the many sound effects that come out of the DualSense. It's a treat for the senses, and the music matches everything excellently as well. But the real star might be the voice acting, as the cast nails their roles to perfection. That said, it's hard not to highlight Jennifer Hale as Rivet, who's instantly able to convey her personality in just a few interactions with Clank. She has great chemistry with the rest of the cast, and it all just works. It also needs to be said that the accessibility options are vast, with so many aspects able to be customized to varying needs. This includes contrast options such as shaders and HUD design, toggling combat options and how much a single button press does, simplified traversal controls, and a host of options for those with motion sickness. That last one came in handy as my partner felt a little nauseous from the screen shake at times while watching me play, and I was able to tone that down to eliminate the issue. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is easily one of the best games in the series and a top-notch showcase of what Insomniac can achieve. The platforming has been expanded in engaging ways while the combat maintains its trademark chaotic energy. The DualSense is an absolute boon to the game, making it even greater than it would have been otherwise. To be clear, even without it, Rift Apart would be a fantastic entry with some of the strongest writing in the entire franchise. With it though, the game is pure bliss to play, and I can only hope that more people take a chance on the series. While it builds on what came before, knowledge of prior games isn't necessary. This is a standalone story that's easy to jump into for newcomers. If you've managed to get a PlayStation 5, this game should absolutely be part of your collection. It's a brilliant example of what the new gen can bring. But what do you think? Will this be your first Ratchet game, or are you a longtime fan? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you liked this review, consider checking out our Patreon over at patreon.com/gvgaming. Of course, we appreciate all your support, whether it's just hitting the like button, subscribing to Good Vibes Gaming, or ringing the bell. Until next time, bye!